Hello there, this is Manic Recurring with your Astrocartography reading. In this reading, I'm basically just going to be moving around this map and showing you the different parts of the world and talking about different influences that you would likely experience astrologically in these different areas. And you've asked specifically about, which areas would be best for your career, as well as which areas would be best for settling down with a long-term relationship. And I will go over those types of things and much more. And I have no idea which parts of the world that you would likely be more interested in. So I've decided not to favor any one specific area. We're gonna go through the entire world. We're gonna start out with Western Europe, and then we'll work our way through Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, Oceania, and then the Americas. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's start out with Europe. One more thing I wanted to mention though. So you'll notice that there are, large areas where you won't have certain lines going over, because basically what I'm doing is I'm looking at these different lines on the map, like this big red line that runs through Western Europe. You can see a blue line already that goes down through Sweden. And there are certain areas where you won't be near a line. Like for instance, much of Iceland, Scotland, Ireland, parts of Norway, you're not really gonna be you're not gonna be close enough to a line to necessarily experience it. That doesn't necessarily mean that your experience in these areas would be super bland or boring. It just doesn't mean it just means that you're not near enough to one of these lines to experience it. Basically, if you wanted to know about a specific area that was not close enough to a line for me to talk about, I can definitely analyze it. It's just it takes a much more in depth look at it. Basically, I'd have to use a different kind of a different modality, I guess you could say. But if you are curious about that, just go ahead and ask me. But otherwise, I'll do my best to cover as much as I can geographically. So let's start out with this red line here. You can see it's pretty prominent. It goes through much of Western Europe. Really, most of Western Europe, you're going to be close enough to this line to experience it. Even parts of Northwestern and Western Africa. This line goes through Senegal, Mauritania, Morocco, Spain, France, the Low Countries, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, even parts of Finland as well. Even London would be close enough that you may experience this line. Basically, this line, it's the Mars ascendant line. And being on or around this line would mean that you would experience a lot of Mars energy. This is especially personal since it's the Mars ascendant line. So I always say Mars is kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you may be a lot more confident. You may be a lot more action-oriented. Taking action, being a little bit impulsive. This one within itself could be good or bad depending on your personality. Maybe you need to be a little more. Maybe you'd like to be a little more gung-ho, a little bit more confident, put yourself out there. If so, this line could be really great for you. On the other hand, though, you may be very competitive, aggressive, irritable, domineering. So depending on your personality, maybe you could use a little boost of that kind of testosterone energy, or maybe not. It just kind of depends. What else can I say about that? Not only would you be a lot more active and a little bit more volatile, but the way you experience life would be as well. So you could experience more violent accidents around this area. So that would be definitely something to consider. Could be a little bit more dangerous. So yeah, I mean, overall, I would say, Mars is a malefic. I would say for most people, you'd want to avoid living on this line or spending a lot of time there. But again, depending on your personality and depending on what you want, maybe you'd like, a little bit more of that like visceral kind of active energy to get you moving. It just kind of depends. But overall, most people, I'd say you'd probably want to avoid that. Next is this moon midheaven line. This is this kind of like bright blue line that goes vertical north to south through Sweden, goes right by Stockholm, through Poland, much of like central/eastern Europe, goes very close to Italy as well, parts of Greece, and then it goes down through basically right down the middle of Africa, Libya, Chad, Congo, Angola, Namibia, even Cape Town is very close to this line as well. So any of these areas near this blue line with moon midheaven line, this is kind of an interesting one. This would more affect your career. I wouldn't say this would be the best energy for your career, but then again, it depends on what you want, and it depends on what your career is, what your reputation is. With moon midheaven, you may be a lot more emotional in public and in your career. So this within itself is another one of those things that kind of just depends. I can't really say it's good or bad per se. Overall, I would say most of us probably wouldn't want to be more emotional with our career and reputation. But depending on your career, maybe, if you want to be seen as someone very nurturing and intuitive, within your career, then this could be really excellent. If you have some kind of career involving like caregiving, for example, or maybe something spiritual, this could be the line for you. But again, generally speaking, though, I would say most of us probably don't have careers like that. Do you want to be more emotional? Do you want more emotion to come to you through your career, through your reputation, your career path, etc.? It just kind of depends. Budapest is very close to that line as well. So again, that one, moon is not really a malefic or a benefic. It's not something that's going to have an overwhelmingly positive or negative effect on your career. It just kind of depends on what you want and what your career is. You can see a bunch of these lines that go through Eastern Europe, Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and they really dominate Africa here. So let's see. I guess we can go one by one. This is actually pretty unusual to have so many lines kind of clustered together like this. So for the sake of time, I'm gonna be kind of broad a little bit, just to go through this here. You can see the areas that they cover. Like I said, they really dominate much of Africa and the Middle East, Russia, Central Asia. But this first one, the yellow one that goes through here, this is the sun ascendant line. This is one that's much more positive. So this would make you a lot more self-expressive, a lot more expressive, a lot more outgoing, very positive, very optimistic. You'd be kind of shining. You may be seen as much more attractive, not only physically, but your personality will really shine more. Your authenticity, your individuality. You may be more optimistic. You may have more of an upbeat outlook on life near this line. What else? More expressive, more fun-loving, etc. So this is actually one of the most positive lines, generally speaking. It kind of doesn't matter what you are seeking for the most part. You may really get a lot more attention from others. The only time I would really say that you wouldn't want to be near this line is if you wanted less attention, if you wanted to just do your own thing. I don't want to be involved with other people. I want to just be kind of a hermit. This line wouldn't be for you. But other than that, it looks like a really fun line, really positive one. It's actually pretty close to Istanbul. I don't know of any other major cities. Maybe like Lagos. Lagos is it's actually kind of far from there. Crete, even Athens is close to this line. And then again, parts of Ukraine and Russia. Moscow is maybe close enough to experience this line. Usually you want to be within about 200 miles from each line to really experience it. So yes, that does look pretty positive, just depending on if you are interested in these areas. As always, with these types of readings, I say, use your own discernment. Certain parts of the world may be dangerous, so of course we have to consider these aspects, as well when looking at this. That should go without saying. Okay, the next line is the Uranus ascendant line. So this is this light blue one, and it's pretty close to the Jupiter's descendant line. So being close to both of these lines, since they're pretty much together, the light blue and the pink line that go right where my cursor is. Again, parts of Africa, Egypt, Turkey, Russia. On the one hand, the Uranus ascendant line is going to make you much more unpredictable. You may have sudden shifts in your perception. This is another one of those kind of neutral lines that, on the maybe more negative side, you may be a lot more unstable, more unpredictable. Others may not be able to rely on you as well if you are close to this line. But on the other hand, this could be a really great line for seeking greater consciousness, pursuing your own evolution, being more of a free spirit, and, tapping into like the greater truth of humanity and really figuring things out on a bold level. That's what this blue line would be excellent for. The pink line that's right next to it, the Jupiter descendant line, this would be much more expansive and positive for your relationships. So on the one hand, you may just naturally meet more people that are very outgoing, very adventurous, very optimistic. They may help your expansion, help your sense of adventure, help your sense of business as well. You may just meet people that kind of unlock different opportunities for you. And a different way of reading this pink line would be to say that your any kind of romantic relationships as well, you may have more of a sense of adventure with those relationships. Those relationships may really expand and take on more of a fun, kind of expansive, adventurous kind of undertone. So combining both of these, it would make you very freedom loving and adventurous, but it would also really help your relationships as well. So it's a really interesting dynamic that could definitely be great. It goes right next to Cyprus as well. Okay, next is this black line, which kind of cuts through and sort of overlaps these other lines. And it does get really kind of complicated when you stack on multiple lines, next to each other, of course. This is the Chiron descendant line. You can see it goes through much of, again, many of the similar kind of places: Russia, Turkey, Egypt, and then it cuts down through Sudan, Congo, Angola, Namibia. But the Chiron descendant line, this is a very powerful, it's kind of intense. You may have very healing experiences through your relationships. So that by that, it goes both ways. You may heal others in one-on-one settings, one-on-one relationships, and one-on-one dynamics, but you may also be healed through your experiences with others as well on or around this black line. Next is this Neptune ascendant line. It goes through, again, Angola, Congo, Sudan, Egypt, but it actually cuts more close to Israel, Syria, Georgia, and then through into Russia here. So this purple line, I hope this isn't too complicated, but this purple line, it's right. So the Neptune ascendant line, again, this is one of those double-edged sword lines. So on the one hand, you could be a lot more confused. There'd be this constant sense of delusion or fantasy around this line. But on the other hand, this may make you very spiritual as well. That's kind of the gist of it. This brown line here is the Saturn ascendant line. This is a malefic. Most people would tell you to avoid Saturn lines because Saturn does make life more challenging. There are certain select situations where you may want to go near this line, but for the most part, I would generally say to avoid it. The Saturn ascendant line would make you a lot more serious. You may be maybe more authoritative, more of a leader, so that could be a benefit maybe if you wanted to take on more of an authoritarian role in your life. But on the other hand, you may come across very serious. You may also be a little bit more depressed. Life would be a little bit more bleak, more cold. What else? You could lose weight near this line as well, because Saturn tends to have like a restrictive effect on us. So you may, everything would kind of, you'd experience life in a more kind of constrictive way. So like, let's say you wanted to get rid of certain aspects of your life, like if you're dealing with an addiction or something, this line could actually be really great for having that like cold, objective view of reality, getting serious with yourself, getting mature or what have you. This line could actually be a really great wake-up call. But I think most of us aren't seeking that type of line. This line would definitely make life less fun. So most of us aren't really gonna be experiencing, we're not necessarily going to be looking for that. As to how that would affect your career or relationship, it really just depends on the circumstance. How would it affect your career or relationship being, having this kind of colder outlook on life, being more serious? Depending on your life, depending on your personality, that may help or inhibit your career and relationship. Okay, and then kind of breaking out of this cluster here, or starting to, is the Mercury ascendant line. This one also goes through much of like Central Africa, Sudan. It's pretty close to Eritrea, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, pretty close to Tehran, and then Central Asia, Kazakhstan, Russia. So the Mercury ascendant line, you are going to be experiencing a lot of Mercury energy when you are on or around this line. So you may be, this really would really be great for learning more and also just being busier in general as well. So taking on a role in life where you are learning, researching, handling large amounts of information, maybe teaching as well. So again, it goes both ways, learning a lot, but also teaching a lot. This in itself is also kind of a neutral energy. Do you want more of that mental energy, the analytical energy? Do you want to be learning more? Depending on your personality and what you want, I could see this being really great for you if you do want to kind of learn more, be more adaptable. If you want to immerse yourself in information and learning. But on the other hand, you may or may not want that. Do you want that level of analysis and learning Depending on what you want, that could be the best thing, or it could kind of drive you crazy as well. Okay, next is this darker green line. Kind of runs along the coast of, the east coast of Africa, Mozambique, Somalia, parts of the Middle East, Iran, cuts right through Central Asia, right through Astana, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Kazakhstan. So this is the Venus ascendant line. This is much more positive. Venus is a benefic. Venus is overwhelmingly positive for the most part. Venus makes things pleasurable. It makes things abundant. So being on or around your Venus ascendant line, this means that you are going to be a lot more pleasurable. You'll naturally know what you want a lot more. You'll naturally know how to find what you find pleasurable. But you will be pleasurable as well to others. This may enhance your charisma a little bit. Others would enjoy your company. They may find you more attractive. I think this would be beneficial for really all parts of life. Not only would it make life more fun, but it could also really enhance your career or your relationships as well. It would really enhance every part of your life, because your entire life you'd be experiencing through that lens of pleasure, desire, fun, charisma, etc. Okay, and then next is this kind of black vertical north to south line. This is a Pluto midheaven line. And this could enhance your career, but it kind of just depends. So anywhere around really just like the east part of the Middle East, Oman, Iran, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Russia. So being on or around this line, on the one hand, it would make you a lot more authoritative with your career. So you could be a lot more ambitious. You'll be seen as being more powerful, as well as maybe more mysterious as well. With your career and reputation, you could be more of a divisive figure. So others, certain people within your career and reputation, they will either love or hate you. So it kind of just intensifies your career. I do think this would generally lead to more success through your career, because it will constantly push you to evolve and to become stronger with your career and reputation, to become better. As you become better, though, as you become more ambitious and achieve more success within your career, it may result in more paranoia. There's this element of paranoia there as well. So generally speaking, this is a really dark energy. Pluto is a malefic. Most people would tell you to avoid any kind of Pluto line with this astrocartography. But again, there are certain select kind of parts of it that may be beneficial depending on what you're seeking. If you want to come across more intense and mysterious with your career, this would be a great line to be on or around. Okay, let's do this other north to south, this red line here. So this is a little bit closer to your neck of the woods. I don't know if you're still living in India, but you can see this little cross marks your birth location. Also, quick side note, I thought it was interesting that there are pretty much no lines that go through India for you, but there are lines that are immediately around India, as you can see. So this Mars midheaven line is one of those. Again, we're dealing with Mars energy, so being on or around this line, through Pakistan, maybe parts of like Western India right here, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, Russia, being around this line, you may experience a lot more volatility or violent accidents through your career, through your reputation. So being out in the world, in public, on or around this line could be very dangerous for you. But on the other hand, so generally speaking, I would say to avoid this line. But on the other hand, this could make you a lot more ambitious with your career, a lot more competitive, a lot more ruthless, more spontaneous, more impulsive. So overall, I would say probably avoid it. But if you did want to be a lot more confident, a lot more outgoing with your career and reputation, this could be really great for you. Like if you were in some kind of industry that would benefit from you being more competitive, like sales or something, this line could be beneficial. I would just say to use absolute caution around this line, because Mars does make things a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more volatile for sure. Okay, and then there's this kind of other black line that curves through much of Pakistan, Afghanistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Russia. This is the North Node ascendant line. And I would be especially careful where these two lines intersect. So much of Pakistan and Afghanistan, I would use much caution, because we already talked about the Mars line, how it makes things more violent and more tumultuous. The North Node ascendant line can be very good for evolution, and you'll probably learn a lot very quickly being on or around this line. The reason why I say to use caution, though, especially where it intersects with the Mars line, is because nodal energy is unstable as well. You have this really great, how do I put this? Like, on the one hand, it's really great because life will constantly be exciting around that black line. You'll constantly be learning new things and, starting a new chapter, having these opportunities. It can be very exciting being around this energy, but it is fundamentally unstable. Things will be constantly changing. You'll be constantly learning, but there's no stability there. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no, so this is more of a great line for like maybe just visiting, in a time where you want to evolve and, maybe you're experiencing some kind of writer's block, so to speak, some kind of lack of creativity. This line could be really great for that. But when it comes to living there long term, I would say it would be very unstable, especially near the Mars line, because both Mars and nodal energy are fundamentally unstable. Okay, and then again, really no lines at all through India at all, or Western China. But there is this Sun midheaven line, which could be very auspicious. So this yellow north to south line that runs through Myanmar, right kind of through central China, Mongolia, Russia. Really, there aren't really going to be any parts of India. Maybe like the extreme eastern parts of India, you would experience this line, but that's about it. Being on or around this line would be generally positive. That's at least what this line would suggest, because with your career and reputation, you'd be much more outgoing, much more optimistic. You may be a lot more charismatic. Others would enjoy your company. You may have a lot more energy, a lot more ambition and motivation with your career and reputation. You'd be seen as a go-getter. You'd be seen as someone charismatic, someone fun, but also someone powerful as well. So again, sun energy, you kind of can't go wrong with. It does look like one of the most powerful lines for your career and reputation. It also goes south into Indonesia as well. This is like far western Indonesia though. Like Medan is very close to this line. Okay, and then we get another cluster here. So, okay, let's talk about this light blue line. It goes through anywhere, most places in Thailand would be close enough to this line to experience. It also goes right by Singapore and through western Indonesia as well, through Sumatra. But yeah, Singapore is kind of sandwiched right between this blue and pink line. And then the blue line goes up through, honestly, mostly just wilderness. There's not really much up here, I don't think, through Mongolia and Siberia. But this blue line is the Uranus midheaven line. It's a neutral line. It's not necessarily good or bad. It would bring a lot of unpredictability, volatility, sudden surprises, but also sudden growth with your career and your reputation. So if you want to be seen as someone unpredictable, someone quirky, someone eccentric, someone who has kind of a volatile intelligence, like if you were, I don't know, some kind of like scientist or author, or doing some kind of profession where you were like working away on your own, but cultivating something that could benefit others, benefit humanity, change society, this line could be really excellent for you. But again, on the other hand, though, that kind of unpredictability with your career and reputation, that could be destabilizing. You may or may not want that type of energy. There's also this Jupiter IC line that goes, pretty much parallel to the light blue line, through Indonesia, Thailand, Southeast Asia. It is pretty close to Jakarta, Singapore, Phnom Penh. I don't know how to say this city name. Hanoi is close to this as well. And then some of these Chinese cities in central China as well. And then Mongolia and Siberia. This pink line is mostly going to affect your home life, though. The Jupiter IC line, there's going to be a lot more expansion, a lot more optimism at home. So you may get a really nice house. You may be constantly kind of building on or expanding your home in some kind of way. You could also be maybe traveling a lot. So I could see you, this is one of those lines that I could see you more likely to move if you're living on this line. So you may not spend a lot of time there. Or you may be constantly hopping around, moving a lot near this line. But generally that would be advantageous, but again, it just depends on what you want. I mean, with any of these lines, it depends on what you want generally. So Jupiter is a benefic. It makes life a lot more pleasurable and adventurous. But again, applying that to your home life, though, do you want to be more adventurous when it comes to your home? It's almost kind of a contradiction there. Okay, and then this dark blue line that kind of cuts through diagonal, the moon descendant line. It also cuts through much of Southeast Asia and through China, Mongolia, Siberia. And it also cuts through close to Perth and kind of grazes the west coast of Australia. This blue line is going to bring a lot of emotion into your relationships, into your, not just your romantic relationships, but any one-on-one kind of partnerships or relationships. There'll be a lot more emotion there. So do you want that? That could be a double-edged sword. You may also meet people, you may just tend to meet people on or around this line that are very emotional, very sensitive, very intuitive, maybe spiritual, but also just kind of generally emotional. So if you wanted to connect with your emotion through other people, this would be a great place to go to. Otherwise, you may not want that. Okay, the Neptune midheaven line cuts through Hanoi. Isn't that what this island? Haiku. Through Indonesia, through China, through Mongolia, Siberia. So this purple line is, it could bring confusion, delusion to your career and reputation. You may not come across in a way that other people are going to understand you if you're near this line. On the other hand, though, this could be really great for if you want to come across like more of an enigma, if you want to come across very spiritual, if you're doing something spiritual, some kind of spiritual work, any kind of spiritual or religious or philosophical work may be enhanced by this line. Okay, and then we've got this weird combination of a Chiron IC line, which is this black one, and then a brown one right next to it, just parallel, and that's the Saturn midheaven line. So these lines put together, they're going to make your life a lot more serious, intense. You may be a lot more philosophical. You may be kind of more in your head, more. This could be a really great set of lines for like enhancing your wisdom of life. But you may not really want that though. It's going to make life seem more bleak, more serious, kind of less. How do I put this? Less. There'll be less life, if that makes sense. It'll be more about just kind of sitting back and pondering things. Kind of more of a slow life, more back to the basics type of thing. This almost looks like a good line for like maybe retirement or something, where you're kind of just like pondering everything and really seeing everything for what it is. When it comes to actually enjoying life, having a lot of fun, I don't think that would be the best type of energy anywhere near there. Saturn midheaven could also make you a lot more responsible with your career and reputation, but also, you're going to be a lot more challenged in that area. So generally speaking, I would say to avoid that line unless you want more of a challenge with your career and reputation. If you want to come across more serious, more authoritative, then maybe you would want that. But for most people, I would say to avoid this set of lines here. Okay. Okay, the Mercury midheaven line. This is this kind of spring green line that goes through Western Australia, parts of Indonesia, almost, parts of the Philippines, Taiwan, Eastern China. It's pretty close to Beijing and many of these kind of major cities on the east coast of China. And then it goes up through Manchuria and Russia. So this light green line, this is going to make you a lot more analytical, and you'll be learning a lot more through your work. So maybe take on some kind of work that more so involves teaching, reading, researching, writing, learning, analyzing, explaining, and dealing with a lot of information, etc. So again, do you want that or not? That really just depends on what you want. You may also be seen as an intelligent person more so on this line. Others will see you as someone who deals with information and learns. So again, do you want that? You may or may not want that. This dark green line is the Venus midheaven line. It cuts right through the middle of Australia, parts of Indonesia, and then up through Japan. and the far east of Russia. Um, Although I would say it does cover a lot of kind of desolate locations, right? Um, Although not all desolate, though. There are some maybe lucrative areas on this line. But the Venus Midheaven line, any Venus line is going to really enhance the pleasure of your life, the abundance. So, this would be one of those more auspicious lines to be on or around. In particular, this is really going to enhance the pleasure of your career and reputation. So you would come across more charismatic. Others will really enjoy your company around this line. And also, you may have a lot more fun with your career and reputation as well, and that's really going to shine. So again, this is one of the best lines for a career. Maybe that could kind of flow into the other aspects of life as well. That could help your relationship as well, but it's mostly going to be benefiting your career around that line. Okay, and then we've got these two black lines. The Pluto descendant line is this more diagonal one. It goes right by, kind of close to Melbourne, Papua New Guinea, and then through Sapporo, and then kind of again the far east of Russia. This would intensify your relationships. I would avoid this line, especially if you want a positive and happy romantic relationship. I would say to avoid this line right here. It's going to make you a little bit more paranoid with other people, and it's going to attract more intense circumstances with your relationships. The only positive of this is that you're going to be constantly evolving through your interactions with other people, through those relationships. It's almost like it's crushing all this pressure onto you through your relationships and forcing you to evolve like a diamond, right? But do you want that, though? I would say for 99% of people to avoid that line. Pluto makes things generally more difficult. It is the destroyer. It's going to bring destruction through your relationships, so probably avoid that line. The North Node Midheaven line goes through, east coast of Australia, Papua New Guinea, mostly just through the Pacific Ocean here, and then up into Kamchatka. So the North Node Midheaven line is kind of a double-edged sword. It could help your career. It could bring you a lot of new opportunities, expansion. You may just, a lot of synchronicities could happen around this line. So you may just meet the right person that helps, bring you to the next step of your career somehow. There's a lot of new change that would happen around that line. So the one of the best and the worst parts of this line would be the instability, constant new change, new experiences, new opportunities. But again, that would be to the downfall of your stability with your career and reputation. So I would say maybe visit this line. Probably don't live there would be my advice. And if you do decide to do that, I would say to stay east of this line, because west of this line, you'll be close to the Pluto descendant line. That'll bring that like destruction and intensity to your relationships. East of this line, like Sydney, Brisbane, you'll mostly just experience the North Node Midheaven line and not the Pluto line, if that makes sense. And again, probably just visit there. If you do live there, your career will be constantly changing and growing, so that could be very exciting. But again, there's going to be an instability there too, which, depending on your industry, you may or may not want. Okay, next would be this Mars descendant line, this red one. It goes through the North Island of New Zealand, New Caledonia, Solomon Islands, and it kind of cuts west into right through Japan and parts of Siberia here. So this red line, it is a Mars line. Mars is a malefic, so generally the advice would be to avoid this line. It could bring a lot of competitiveness, impulsiveness with your relationships. So you may meet people that are very competitive and irritable, domineering, what else? Tyrannical, controlling, ambitious though as well. But you would also experience your relationships that way as well. You may be a little bit more competitive, ruthless, domineering, etc. With your relationships too. So generally, I would avoid this line. The only positive that would mostly come from this line would be if you wanted maybe you want a more competitive relationship. This could also help things be more sexual as well. So there could be those benefits, but generally more downsides. Also, again, this is a Mars line, so there could be more violent accidents specifically with your relationships, but also just in general. There could be, you may witness more accidents around this line. So again, definitely use caution around this line. Maybe visit there if you do want some kind of part of this, but otherwise I would generally stay away from this line. Okay, next, I might skip over some of these lines because they mostly just go through the Pacific Ocean. If you happened to be interested in, some of these islands here, you can let me know, but most of these lines just go through the ocean, and that's about it. So for the sake of time, I'm going to skip over this cluster. They do go through Kamchatka, but again, that's a pretty, remote, desolate area that most people would not be interested in. So I can always go back here if you did happen to be interested, but otherwise I'll skip over those. I'll cover this Mercury descendant line because it does go close to Hawaii if you happen to be interested in Hawaii, specifically these western islands of Hawaii. This Mercury IC line, or Mercury descendant line, does go pretty close by. Even Honolulu, you may be close enough to experience this line. So the Mercury descendant line, again, it's Mercury. It's not a benefic. It's not a malefic. It's not overwhelmingly positive or negative. It just depends on what you want. The Mercury descendant line, you may meet a lot of people that are very intellectual, people that you learn new things from. What else? You may be more busy as well. You may meet more people in general around this line. And your relationships would take on more of like an informational context. So maybe, dating people that are very intelligent, very intellectual, having a relationship with someone that's very intellectual, having really in-depth conversations, etc. Depending on what you want, you may or may not want that. Okay, and then the Venus descendant line, again, it cuts through the Aleutian Islands and then mostly just the Pacific Ocean. So I'm going to skip over that, as well as, now we're getting into North America. I'll talk briefly about this line. It does go through pretty close to Anchorage, Alaska, if you were interested in that location. Otherwise, it's mostly just ocean, though, so we'll briefly talk about it. The North Node descendant line, it's nodal energy. So I don't know if you remember me talking about nodal energy before. The benefit is constant new change, new growth, new evolution, synchronicities. Life is exciting around these lines. The downside, though, is instability. Life is constantly changing, constant newness, etc. So being around this line, again, my advice is usually, if you wanted some kind of breakthrough, specifically with your relationship, like let's say you were in a really stagnant relationship, or let's say you didn't have a relationship at all, you wanted to meet someone new, I would say maybe go here and just visit for a little while, see if you meet someone. But when it comes to living there for a long time, I don't know if that would be the best thing, because the longer you stay there, the less stable you'll be. And specifically, if you already have a romantic relationship, it'll bring instability to your relationship, which I think mostly would be negative. Maybe you'd want that in some select circumstances, but overall, that instability with your relationships would be probably a deficit. Okay, now is this north to south line. It does go through the west coast, so some of these cities like San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, BC will all be close to this Pluto IC line, and that's about it, honestly. So so this line, it's a Pluto line. Most people would say avoid Pluto lines. Most of these black lines you can avoid because they're either going to be Pluto lines, Chiron lines, or nodal lines. The Pluto IC line, it'll bring constant pressure and paranoia, insecurity, and intensity to your home life around this line. So wherever you're staying, whatever your family situation is, that's where this insecurity and kind of intensity will be for you around this line. So again, I would just generally say to avoid it. It will push you to evolve. You may become a stronger, better person being around this line, but it's coming from a place of intensity and insecurity. It's not fun, that's for sure. Okay, next is this red line, this Mars IC line. It goes through Baja, Mexico, right through Phoenix, Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Montana, and then up through Canada. through Alberta. This is kind of a similar line. Mars is a malefic, and this is a Mars IC line, so it's bringing irritability, intensity, tumultuousness to your home life. You may be more irritable, more competitive at home, could be more sexual, but also, more intense, more volatile. There could be more violent accents as well. So generally probably want to avoid that line as well. Okay, next is the Sun IC line. It goes through much of Central America, as well as, right by Havana, right through Florida, Georgia, much of the kind of eastern United States here, Ohio, Michigan, Ontario. The Sun IC line, this is more favorable. Sun lines bring that kind of sun energy, the energy of optimism, enthusiasm, this kind of vibrant energy. And specifically, this would be affecting your home life. So at home, you may be a lot more energetic. You may be enjoying your home life more of a leader at home as well. So that could be really fun, and may make life much more enjoyable. Specifically with your home life, though, that's where this is going to be affecting you more so. If anything, this could actually be a negative to your career, because you'll be more focused on your home life, more energy at home, therefore less energy in your career and in public. So since you mentioned career, this may actually not be the best line for you. It is mostly a positive line. It's just that it's just more focused on the home is the thing. Okay, next is this Uranus IC line. It goes right through Washington, D.C., much of kind of the eastern seaboard here, East Coast, pretty close to Ottawa. What else? North Carolina, Bahamas, Cuba, right through Kingston and Jamaica, and then down through Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, etc. So this line will make your home life a lot more unstable. You could be maybe learning a lot more, having breakthroughs at home, sudden realizations in your private life or with your family. But again, it's going to bring instability to your home life. So I'm thinking you probably don't want that, but if you wanted some kind of breakthrough with your home life, then this would be the place to go. The Jupiter midheaven line, this is one of the most positive lines for your career and reputation. It goes to Colombia, right by Medellin, however you say that, Colombia, through Peru, through like southern Chile as well. Santiago is maybe close enough. It's kind of far from this line, but through much of like northwestern South America, Cuba, and then again through kind of the East Coast, New York, Philadelphia, Ottawa, would all be close to this line. So the Jupiter midheaven line, this would bring expansion and optimism, adventure to your career and reputation. You'll be seen as more of a go-getter, more of a leader. You'll be seen as someone very optimistic and expansive with your career and reputation. And so, your career and reputation would be a lot more fun, but also success would generally come easier around that line as well. So again, this is one of the ones that I would definitely highlight for you and say this is very potentially auspicious line. This purple line, the Neptune IC line, will bring delusion and confusion to your home life, potential spirituality though as well. So it goes through Quebec, Maine, through these kind of Caribbean islands, and then down through Venezuela, like the Amazon regions of Brazil, Bolivia, right through Chile, pretty close to Santiago. So honestly, this line would really only be good if you were seeking greater spirituality through your home life. Then this would be excellent. But other than that, for most of us, I don't think this would be an attractive line to go to. Okay, next would be this kind of dark blue line. This is the moon ascendant line. It goes through Peru, Colombia, Venezuela, through some of these Caribbean islands, and then through the kind of east coast of the eastern provinces of Canada, through Greenland as well. So the moon ascendant line will make you much more emotional, much more in touch with your emotions. Do you want that or not? That in itself is going to have huge pros and cons. Honestly, that's about it. You'll be more emotional, more sensitive, more spiritual, more intuitive. So do you want that or not? That's up to you. I don't think this would necessarily help your career and relationship unless being emotional would help those things. Okay, and then let's talk about this black and brown line, the Chiron Midheaven line, and the Saturn IC line. They go through Quebec, Maine, Caribbean islands, Venezuela, and then right down the middle of South America. So these lines will challenge you, and again, life will not be very vibrant by these lines. It's gonna be a lot more serious. You're gonna be a lot more serious, especially at home. There may be more challenges or responsibilities at home. Your career, you may be kind of learning a lot through. You could be maybe more of a healer with your career, healing people, helping people through intense issues. Maybe your career would help heal you with some trauma or intense issues as well. But all in all, this would be kind of a weird set of lines to be around. It would be more serious, more challenging. I don't think I would necessarily recommend these lines. Okay, and then I think the last line I'm going to talk about is, well, two more. So these two green ones here. So first we'll talk about this kind of spring green line. It goes pretty close to Buenos Aires, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Venezuela, and then up through these eastern provinces of Canada. So this line will have you be learning and researching a lot more at home. So being a lot more intellectual at home, having more conversations, maybe analyzing, researching, learning, teaching, working with information at home, etc. So that's up to you whether you want that or not. Lastly is this Venus IC line. So it goes pretty close to, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, kind of eastern Brazil, and then it goes up through Greenland, I believe. So this line is going to be really positive for your home life. You may be really enjoying staying at home. So I could see maybe that helping your romantic relationship. If you're living with the person that you are in a relationship with, this could really help to, enjoy that part of your life and expand that part of your life. But otherwise, I definitely don't see this really helping your career necessarily. You'll just be enjoying your home life more. I don't think that's what you're seeking. So although it is generally, an overwhelmingly positive line, I don't think it's what you personally are seeking, judging by your email. Okay, so that's pretty much what I have for you. I know that was pretty long. If I had to boil it down, the best areas for your career would be, well, for one, there's the sun ascendant line, this yellow one. That would be best for pretty much all parts of life. And then same with this Venus line as well, this dark green one. That could help just generally kind of every part of your life. Specifically with your career, the sun midheaven line, this yellow one, this could be a moneymaker, so to speak. That could be very helpful for your career and reputation. Same with this dark green one as well right here. Honestly, I think that's mostly what I see for you. That's pretty much what I see. So let me know if you have any questions. I hope I helped to answer kind of what you're seeking. But otherwise, definitely let me know. And, I would be more than happy to follow up and answer any questions that you have or etc. So thanks for this reading request. I hope this helps you or was interesting. And have a great day.